Hi, I'm Brad with Venter Cranes. In this video, we're focusing on control and power systems of your crane. Wired pendants, radio remotes, Festoons, Downshop, power bars, and the safety devices that go with them, like flashing lights, beacons, and horns. These are the operator's interface and the crane's warning systems. If they fail, control is lost and people are at risk. So let's start with operator controls. Whether it's a wired pendant or a radio remote, this is the operator's direct connection to the crane. Inspection criteria include buttons. They must return to neutral when released. Sticky or tape buttons are unsafe. Enclosures must not be cracked or missing screws. Pendant cords should be free of cuts, crushing, or exposed conductors. Pay special attention where the cable enters the pendant. That's a common failure point. Let me show you on this one, right? This is where I'm talking about. Radio remotes must have working emergency stop buttons, intact antenna if it has an antenna fitted, and reliable power supply. CSA B167 requires that all controls return to off when released, and that emergency stops are tested at the start of every shift. So let's look at some examples. This is a wired pendant, right? This is an older one. The cord enters through a clamp, right? That takes the stress of the cable. This one in particular didn't actually have a cable with strain relief. Let me show you a new R&M pendant, right? If you see, this cable has built-in strain relief. Not all pendants come with strain relief on the wire, right? In that case, you need to run an external chain or external wire to support the cable, so the conductors aren't carrying the weight of the cable and the pendant, right? You see how this one's fitted? You see the angle it's fitted at as these wires are tied off? That's not a mistake. That's done so the strain relief carries the weight of the cable, right? And not the cable. You'll see the difference between a normal SOW cable and one with strain relief. See these outside pieces? That's a wire that's coated over with the cable, right? E-stops, your red one should be able to push in, release, right? E-stops come in all sorts of different types, right? Your standard button, some cranes may have a start and a stop button. Some might just have stop, and your e-stop would be your start and your e-stop will be your stop. Up, down, left, right, east, west, right? These decals should match your decal on your crane. So your crane, at the bottom of your steelwork, you should have a decal north, east, south, west, and that makes it easy for the operator, even a new operator, to pick up a remote or a control, have a look at the direction he's trying to go, match it with the crane, and off he goes, right? This is a 1242 remote control. There's your e-stop, right? The antenna here is internal. This remote will do a dual hoist on a single crane. These remotes are great. They've been around a long time. Your battery box, right? Often what happens is these terminals are broken with the battery box going in and out, and that's the most common failure on these guys, except for this e-stop. Right, operators drop them on the bench or on the table and they break these e-stops off. So as much as I like these remotes, the e-stop on these is not great, right? This is the family of that 1242, so the 342 single hoist, same thing. E-stop is right on the top, big red button. Antenna is internal. This one's almost better. You can see the e-stop is basically flat. These ones aren't common in breaking. The bigger one, the e-stop, is common to break. These are pretty good remotes. They last. They rarely break, right? Usually it's they're worn out, old age. You can see the decals up, down. That's a CSA requirement that they be labeled. If your remote or your pendant labels are missing, they need to be replaced, right? Here's a Juco. The Juco, the e-stop's on the top. You can see it's protected, right? So nicely protected on the top. Same idea, start button, all your functions identified. This is a Flex EX These are great, but they're an expensive system. What I don't like about these is the keys get lost, right? They're easily lost, and they're costly, right? So there's so many different types of them, right? Maybe you've got a belly box, right? It's a belly box, remote control, joystick operation, right? E-stop right here on the top, right? These rarely fail. Usually the operators put these down nicely. The cover guard protects them quite well. I've rarely seen these fail over the years, but they're much more costly, right? You'll find these used on like truck cranes and that type of stuff, right? They also use them on some bigger overhead cranes. I mean, you can use it on whenever you want. It'll function with anything, right? It's a programmer, right? These programmers are used for the 342 and 1242 series, which is this series. If you have one, make sure you know how to use it, because you can wipe the program from your remote if you use it wrong, right? And that sounds great, you just put another program in, but no, that's not great. We had a facility that we took over some time ago. They got over 20 cranes in the depot. Some of the cranes had the same program put into them, so when an operator operated one crane, the other crane started moving, and that's a serious safety issue. Fortunately, nobody was injured. It was caught, and we managed to find the problem and resolve it for them by changing the codes within their radios, right, keeping them apart. This has fast become my favorite remote system. They're probably the most cost-effective system on the market at the moment. The Airmark, I love the e-stop. It's hidden away, not easily to break. Your start button as well, it's nice, it works well. This one remote replaces both these systems, right? This one remote does what this one does, right? A dual system, but it also does your single system, right? And the cost of this system is less than the cost of this system. Actually, it's less than the cost of any of the systems I've shown you here today. The Airmark remote control. I'm not trying to be the sales agent for these systems, but they're an awesome system, right? We started using them this past year, and I'm very impressed with them. Good all-round system, nice little rubber case that comes included with it. These other systems, the rubber cases are purchased separately, right? They don't come included. This guy, everything comes included. Very well identified. Your labeling would fit in here. Yeah, if you're looking for a remote control system or trying to replace one you've got, these Airmark systems, I truly recommend them, right? They're an awesome system. So let's move on here. Festoon systems. The Festoon carries pendant or power cables along the bridge, right? So you'll see it on the side of your crane where your cables are hanging down. That's your Festoon system, right? Problems here can stop your crane mid-operation, right? Cable wearing or cracking. Over the years, the bending of the cable breaks wires within the core, and if you're in the middle of the bridge, that's where it breaks, right? Or that's where you stop, and you need to get up there and fix it, replace it. Sometimes there's spares in the cable and you can just swap it to the next one. But I've found through experience that if one wire is broken, the rest are on their way, right? So trolleys rolling smooth with all wheels present. You need to make sure your trolleys are smooth and easy rolling. Supports and anchors intact and not bent, right? Many of the systems are bolted on. The bolts can come loose. Even the joins where the tracks join each other, they can come loose and your trolleys can come out. Sag in the loops. Too much sag means the cables might snag, so your loop hang, make sure your loop hang is right. Where's these ones? So standard towing trolley, right? This trolley, you'll normally find it coming off the hoist with a bar through it, and this will be the one that pulls your system across. If you don't have a towing trolley, it means you're just dragging the cable, and what happens is it pulls it sideways and doesn't sit properly in the track, right? Causing your track to come loose, snag, and even break. So that's your towing trolley. Your regular trolley might look something like this. There's different types and makes, right? This is the ductor wire parts that I'm showing you here. See your wheels? They're just bearing wheels, kind of like a skateboard bearing wheel. These bearings seize after time, they wear out, right? So these are things to look for. If your Festoon system's tight, chances are your wheels have failed and you need to replace your trolleys, right? These wheels aren't replaceable. They're a press fit on. You just replace the entire trolley, right? Yeah, let's move on to the Downshop power bar system. So sometimes your main power coming to your crane could also run on trolleys, but many times they run on Downshop power bar systems. So you'd have 3 red bars and a green bar. A lot of the older systems don't have the green bar because it wasn't required back in the day. It's a requirement today. You should install a ground bar to your crane. Many of the crane systems back in the day, we used to rely on the wheels touching the steel for your ground. Little bit of common sense today. We know that if there is something going wrong, that'll go through your bearings, right, and cause bearing failure and so on for this thing for short to get to ground, right? So we install ground bars now. When cranes have variable frequency drives, which are sensitive to power quality, double collector arms are required by law, right? That would be a double collector arm. You might have a VFD upgrade or a VFD on your crane and it only has a single collector arm. You need to replace it with a double collector arm, right? This ensures continuous power contact even if one shoe bounces as it's moving down the rail, right? These things move, they're spring loaded, right? So it prevents nuisance tripping or drive faults. Inspection of conductor systems includes collector arms and shoes, right? These are your collector arms. Check for freedom of movement, like I showed you now, the spring loading, spring tension, proper alignment to the bar. On your tow bar, this should sit aligned with your power bar, not sitting off at an angle so these arms are bending all over the place, right? Collector shoe. Most OEMs mold a wear line mark. So within this shoe, there's actually a line across that collector shoe. That's your wear line mark. Don't let it go below that mark. You won't have proper contact. That's the point they need to be replaced. Contact surfaces, so running across the top, look for arcing, burning or pitting, right? Arcing, burning and pitting will damage your buzz bar system. It's far cheaper to replace an arm because the spring has lost tension than it is to replace the complete bar because you've damaged it from burning, right? Insulator covers, this will be your cover, must be intact, no cracks or gaps. Remember, when these shoes run in your system, they run right next to each other, right? So you could have 1, 2, well, there should be 4, one with your ground bar, running right next to each other, right? So if they're broken or cracked, you could short out, right? So properly installed power bar systems will deliver clean, reliable power, but without inspections, failures can cause a crane to shut down, right? If your buzz bar system's not maintained well and your clips aren't looked after and they get brittle from the sun and nobody's checking it, the bar can come down, right? So the bar will come loose and it'll hit the deck. We see that often, right? In winter, we suggest removing one of the bars on your double collect arm and putting a brush in it. It helps to descale the ice that often builds up on unheated systems. Putting in a heated system is the way to go if your system is outside. But it's not affordable for everybody, right? They can be very costly. So there is ways that can help, but there's no way around freezing, right? It's maintenance. You have to keep up with your maintenance to keep these things running well, right? So warning lights and horns. Warning devices are not optional, right? They're part of the CSA requirements. Flashing lights and beacons must be bright and visible from all directions, right? You need to be able to see it. It's not something you just have to have on your crane because the law says so. It's a safety device, right? It's like having indicators on your vehicle. I'm sure if somebody doesn't indicate in front of you and just turns out or turns into your traffic, you'd be pretty upset, right? These lights do the same thing. Horns must be tested daily and must be audible above background noise. Most sites require the horn to sound before and during travel. We usually set that upon the systems. All these remote control systems come with built-in horns on their receivers. So you might not have a separate horn on your crane because the remote system's start horn is loud enough to be heard across a loud workshop, right? Some facilities use both audible and visual warnings for redundancy. If the horn or beacon fails, the crane's not compliant and must not operate until it's repaired, right? There's many different types of horns out there. Federal was the most common back in the day, but they're costly. These Wormer brands, I've started using these for the last 3 or 4 years. I'm very impressed by these Wormer brands. You can actually get them with the built-on horn. So this is just a single light. They come any color you want, right? And then the next model up will have the horn built in on the bottom, so you can wire either or both. What else I like about them is you can set them for permanent on or blinking, right, depending on the application. So Verma, these are the ones I recommend. They're less costly. They're actually far less costly than any other brand, and they carry the same CL, UL, CE ratings as any of the others, right? So daily testing and maintenance. Here's a quick daily test list for your operators, right? So when you come up to your crane, I'll just use this for example. Test the emergency stop, right? Ensure your emergency stop's functioning. I said in another video that the emergency stop should take out the main contactor on the crane, not just kill the supply, right? The control supply. So if you're a maintenance technician, check that your emergency stop actually drops out the main contactor, which drops out the three-phase supply to the other contactors in the crane, right? Why we do that is if the contactors burn in, when you push your e-stop in, it drops out the main supply to those contactors, so the crane will just come to a stop, right? When you just wire your emergency stop through your control voltage and your contactors burn in, the crane's going to keep going, right? Your emergency stop or your main contactor is normally much bigger than it needs to be, so it lasts way longer with the duty cycle, right? You get a lot more life out of it. So for example, if we needed a constant 25 amp supplying the crane, I would install a 40 amp main contactor, right? I'd overkill it. We do overkill it because they're often the hardest working contactor on the crane, right? And they're the one you need if something goes wrong, right? So inspect the pendant or remote for damage, right? I'll use this old one here. That's the e-stop for them. I removed it just to show you how these work, these mushroom heads, right? That's basically what they are. They're replaceable. You can get them. These are just the Schneider XAC remote controls. We stock all these remotes, and everything I'm showing you is stuff we keep that we've used over time, right? So test your e-stops, test your buttons, make sure your gland's not broken, make sure your strain relief is connected, right, and hooked to the top correctly. This is often overlooked, right, and I can't tell you how many times I've gone out to breakdowns because the cable's broken here because the strain relief wasn't connected, right, and the cable takes the strain, the operator's pulling the cable all over the place, and the electrical cable's now taking that load instead of the strain relief, right? So make sure that's connected. Sound the horn, right? Many times you have the horn button on the remote control systems. They can be either or, have their own horn button, or you just push the start button and the start button activates the horn. Inspect your housings of your pendants. You're looking for cracks, damages, anywhere you can get your finger in. And why do we do that? Because there's power inside here. This is an electrical enclosure, right? Often we don't treat it like one, but it's an electrical enclosure with live power inside it. So your pendant should be secure, sealed, right? If your crane's outside and the pendant isn't sealed, it'll fill up with water, not just damaging your contacts inside, but there's risk of electrocution, right? So make sure it's in good working condition. For your conductor bars, visually check, right? You can walk along the length of your runway and visually check that all your connections are intact, right? That your shoes are in. If you're part of maintenance and you go up and inspect, disconnect your power before going up and inspecting your buzz bar, right? Lockout, follow your lockout and tag out procedure, and then check your collector shoes. Here you can clearly see the wear line mark, right, across this shoe. If your collector shoes are nearing that mark or on or below that mark, it's time to replace your collector shoe, right? They simply unscrew, screw the new one in, put it back in, good to run again, right? So those are just your general inspection points. Some key takeaways here. Before I go there, periodic inspection should include removing the pendant cover checking Festoon trolleys, and measuring collector shoe wear, right? So what I just showed you there, making sure your collector shoes are good, the pendant cover, right? Making sure everything's intact, closed up, sealed up, and then your trolleys, very important. Make sure your trolleys are still functioning, right? Many times what we just do is you can grab your pendant from the floor and walk across and make sure it's not snagging anywhere, right? If there's any strange noises or if it gets tight, you need to get in a lift, go up, see what's going on, replace the faulty parts, or fix whatever may have come loose, right? Remember, if your pendant arms come loose up there, they'll fall down, right? You don't want anything coming down and potentially injuring anyone. So key takeaways: controls must return to neutral and have working e-stops, right? Festoon and conductor bar systems must be checked for wear and alignment. VFD driven cranes require double collector arms and a ground bar, right? Don't forget, you need a ground bar. You cannot rely on the ground running through your crane wheels. We wouldn't do this in household installations. Why are we doing it to our overhead cranes, right? Horns and lights must always function, right? And if any of these fail, your crane is unsafe and non-compliant. So here at Fencer Cranes, we service and inspect pendants, remotes, Festoon, conductor bar systems, and all crane safety devices according to CSA B167 and OEM standards, right? If you're a maintenance technician on site and you're performing the in-house inspections, make sure you have a copy of CSA B167 and familiarize yourself with the requirements of your quarterly inspection or your operator daily inspections, whatever the case may be, right? So all our training and information videos are available on our YouTube channel at Fencer Cranes, and follow for more crane safety and maintenance insights. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for joining me.